Chamber program sound.
Members remind members of the ongoing obligation to declare interest, switching off mobile, okay, and turning your tablet to mute. Okay, also to say Sheila's off sick, so Trevor Allen very kindly has stepped in for today's meeting. Okay, thank you, Trevor.
Thank
Yep.
you.
So today's business departmental briefing on the draft local government reorganisation compensation for loss of employment regulations. We asked for the department to come and talk to us. Also departmental briefing on the review of biodegradable carriers back, and certainly remember, Pam, if you remember, you kind of raised that issue about degradable bags, whether
yes,
they should be reviewed. So this is department coming back to talk to us. Then there's also research, and Research and Information Service going to give us a review, a briefing on the new EU initiatives. And if I can just invite, welcome two students. Sandra has brought two students, Rachel and Isiri. Okay, one Rachel's from Cookstown High School and Isiri is from Maharafelt High School. Okay, you're very welcome. Apologies today? What? Any apologies? Get away. Okay. Radio then. Chairperson's business item 2. Members, just first thing to say to the members who are going to Scotland that staff are still working with the Scottish Parliament on organising the itinerary, so they should finalise it within a day or two, and they will be emailed to members. Okay, and they have identified a nice Chinese restaurant as well for Wednesday night. And so another thing is, yes, just to inform members that we had organised a meeting with Renew, really to have a follow-up meeting on our visit to Metabolon. That was scheduled for the 24th of February, but now we realise that there's going to be a special event in, I think, in the Long Gallery to mark Lord Hayes' contributions to as a speaker to the Assembly, so we will have to reschedule that. So members, we're still trying to work out a different date. So if you please take note, and it's not now on the 24th. We're hoping to maybe rearrange it for the 26th, but we will confirm with members. Okay. Then another one is about the workshop for NIEA, the MCZ workshop. That's scheduled for the 12th of March. We were supposed to go and have our committee meeting there. We still want to go, but they have come back to say to us they were hoping to have it in the visitor centre in Crawfordsburn Country Park. But if the committee is going to have our meeting there, committee meeting there, it may not be big enough because they're going to have a lot of stakeholders there as well as us. And they suggested that maybe we should go to the Spires Conference Centre in Belfast. But I'm not that keen about going to Belfast. I thought it would be nice to go somewhere in the countryside. Crawfordsburn would be a lovely place.
Come to Cookstown or Macrofell, that's even better.
Yeah, somewhere near the sea though. We need
We'll get you a river.
Lock.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're going back. I just wanted to check with members. They suggested we go to Spires Conference Centre, right in the middle of city centre. It's difficult to park, and so if we go back to them and say, find another venue in the countryside, near the sea or a river, Yeah, big enough for the committee to go in for the stakeholders. But we have to be fairly quick now. It's 12th of March. So the staff will go back to NIE and just liaise with them. Okay, or even Loughney, you know, the Discovery Centre. Yeah.
Who do we want to attend this?
We are thinking of bringing the whole committee there
Yeah.
to have our committee
Just
meeting.
ourselves?
And then they are bringing stakeholders.
But where are they coming from? You know, where will
They'll
they
be
coming
from the sector, from the environment sector, and maybe business people as well. This is about destination of MCZs. So for those who don't know what's MCZs, that's Marine Conservation Zones. So Northern Ireland are going to designate a number of MCZs in line with our Marine Act and Marine Strategy. So
Chair, is this our meeting, or is this?
it will be our
You
meeting.
know what I mean?
Thursday
The 12th of
The
March.
MCZ workship, is
Ahead of the
that?
meeting.
Yes.
But that's
That meeting.
It's
They're
going to be.
organising that?
Yes, they're organising it. But then we have said, the committee has agreed that we will have a committee meeting there
So that we
on
can-
the same day.
yes.
So we may have it for a short time, an hour, to go over our own business and then join them.
I'm just wondering, is it okay for us to tell them, actually, no, we don't want to go to this parish, we want to go somewhere else? That's the question I'm asking.
Yeah. I just thought Belfast. It's maybe not the right location, members. Or we scaled down our committee meeting, standing up meeting. Will be something new, stand-up meeting rather than a big table. You know,
We're not precious about the size of the
yeah,
table, Chair.
stand-up could make it quicker.
Yeah.
New modern style management meeting. Or staff standing up, apparently more efficient. People talk less. Decisions are made quicker.
Try that
So,
out.
yeah, yeah.
Keep going.
So we'll come back to you. Cahill, sorry, Cahill.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Chair, I missed the start of that, but I take it that as part of the process at some stage, we'll have to engage all stakeholders. I know that the likes of the fishing industry and all that as a key part of that there. So
Absolutely.
as long as we have all the stakeholders involved in the process, I don't mind.
Yeah. So I think, you know, that's a very good opportunity for us to be engaged with all the stakeholders when they are running their workshop.
Okay.
So the first workshop we were not able to go, but this one they scheduled it on the Thursday to coincide with our committee meeting. Okay?
Thank you.
Members, if it has to be Spires, then it has to be, but we just will try to see if we can move it somewhere else. So, members, minutes are on page 6.
Chair,
Yes,
I don't know if I missed you mentioning apologies, but I wanted to give apology for Peter Weir and Lord Morrow.
Okay, Lot Morrow as well. Yes, someone mentioned Peter Weir, but Lot Morrow as well. Minutes, page 6, members, content to agree?
Oh, he's coming.
All right.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry. Chair.
Minutes agreed? Right. I
Great.
agreed. Okay. Item 4, matters arising. Members, you have a cover note there on page 12. I just refer members to a couple of items. Item 4.2 on page 14. The Examiner of Statutory Rules draws the committee's attention to the Nitrates Action Programme regulation and the phosphorus regulations as well, as both have breached the 21-day rule. Now, the Examiner is content with the Department's explanation for the delay, but the Examiner also has drawn your attention to drafting defects in the Nitrates Action Programme regulations. So the wordings he's not too happy about. So members, are you content if we write to the department asking how it intends to address the issues raised by the Examiner?
Great.
Okay, members, then members, are you content then with the suggested actions on the cover note?
Great.
Okay, thank you. Then next item, item 5, page 38. So items 5 to 8 are synopsis of responses to consultation. So this one is on the proposed revocation and remaking of the local government accounts and audits regulations. We note the consultation on the 23rd of October, and we requested a synopsis of responses and the department's response. The consultation period ran from the 20th of October 2014 to 12th of January this year, and a total of 11 responses were received. The majority of the respondents supported the proposals. Respondents suggested bringing forward the date for finalisation, the statement of account, from 31st of October to 30th September, and in response the department will now bring this date forward. Members may remember we suggested this as well to the department, so we're pleased that they are going to act on this. So members, are you content then for the department to prepare the SL1 for legislation?
Great.
Yes, okay. Item 6 on page 53. At our meeting on the 11th of September 2014, the committee looked at consultation on transposition on the amended batteries directive and requested a synopsis of responses and the departmental response. The consultation period ran from the 6th of August 2014 to 5th of November 2014, and a total of 7 responses were received. The department has indicated that stakeholders were broadly supportive of the introduction of the directive, and that the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills intend to make UK-wide regulations. Members, are you content to note?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, item 7 on page 64, and now the synopsis. At our meeting on the 23rd of October last year, the committee looked at the department's consultation on charter status and draft local government transitional, incidental, consequential and supplemental provisions regulations NI 2014, and requested the synopsis of responses and the departmental response. The consultation ran from the 20th of October to the 12th of December last year, and a total of 10 responses were received. The department has indicated that stakeholders were broadly supportive of the legislation. Members, are you content then for the department to prepare the SL1?
Great.
Okay, thank you. Then item 8 on page 74, and now the synopsis of responses. We looked at this on the 24th of October last year. We looked at the department's consultation on planning reform and transfer to local government proposals for subordinate legislation phase 2, and requested the synopsis of responses and the departmental response. Consultation period ran from 31st October to 31st of December, and a total of 26 responses were received. Members, are you content to request an oral briefing from officials on the outcome of the consultations? Because I know members are very interested in certainly the transfer of power to local councils. Cathal?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I mean, yeah, I would accept the briefing. I mean, I think the key element, besides the transfer, and I don't have any problems with the transfer of the powers, it's what the powers consist of, because we're waiting the SPPS.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few issues in terms of some of the policy that's gone down to local authority.
Yeah.
I know that the training programme's going well for some of the councils.
Yeah.
So I think it's a whole process first, but it'd be good to get a briefing to see exactly. But I brought it up because I hope that whilst they will give us an update on where the transfer of the powers are, maybe we'll get a wee bit of an indication what exactly is going down there as well.
That's right.
It's vitally important.
Yeah, you're right. we've been hearing capacity building with councillors and staff have been going well, but we really haven't heard very much about communities. I'd maybe want to ask them about, you know, how many communities, or, you know, how many events have they held for local communities in preparation of like community planning and you know, planning transfer and
Yeah, well, there's other issues obviously with the urban regeneration and all of that, but certainly, Chair,
sure.
we need to keep an eye on. You know.
Yeah, sure. Okay, next.
Chair, there's a related issue. I hope it's in order to raise it here. It's the personnel side of things. You know, there has been a fair amount of turmoil. You know, I witnessed in one planning service the removal van physically outside, and same day, you know, it was the first day that personnel were transferred to work in other locations, in other settings. And I do know of a couple of cases of staff members who do have particular medical circumstances and yet were transferred. You know, there was a process of deciding who stays, who goes. I believe it involved names in a hat. And I do know of at least 2 staff members who, for example, were working 10 miles from home, and are now maybe 50 miles from home, and coming from areas where there's poor public transportation. So I wonder, when the officials come before us, could they give us a wee assessment of the HR process that accompanied this?
The next item is an SL1, and that's the draft local government reorganisation, compensation for loss of employment regulations. So Linda and other staff are here. You know, I'm sure she can maybe give you some indication of how things have been going. So members, as I said, so next item is an SL1. If we can welcome departmental staff. Members, is that a paper is on page 98. Good morning, Linda and Peter Craig. Thank you very much for coming. Well, before you walked in, there was already a question raised, so I'm sure you will have a lot of questions from members. It is very timely that we have the HR head of HR here too. And also, just before you walk into, we'll talk about capacity building too, with councillors. So we know it's going well, but maybe you could, you know, brief us on how well it's going, and what about stakeholders too? Are they being well equipped as well in terms of, you know, with the new powers coming, with the community planning coming on board soon? Okay. Members all have your paper, the paper. So if you want to start and give us your briefing.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you today about the Local Government Reorganisation Compensation for Loss of Employment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2015. Very catchy title. I'm joined today by Peter Gregg, who heads up my HR reform team. He's not actually the head of HR for DOE, but his team is a very small team, but it's been looking at all the sort of HR legislation and setting the general principles for a number of HR issues that have been created because of local government reform. And could I also record our thanks that you agreed today to consider the SL1 for these regulations, because these are regulations that absolutely have to be in place for the 1st of April. So, I mean, the background to the regulations is that they provide new councils with the mechanism to compensate those persons who suffer a loss of employment due to local government reorganisation. Having one scheme set in statute will ensure that there's a fair and consistent approach taken to severance across the whole of local government. However, I must stress that this scheme only applies to severance cases that are directly related to reform. The compensation scheme that these regulations will enable has already been negotiated and agreed by both local government management and trade unions. through the Local Government Reform Joint Forum, and that was actually some time ago. But during this process, the terms and conditions of the scheme have been reconfirmed through the forum. The starting point for the negotiations was actually what happened in health, because it was felt important that there was parity of treatment between the health part of the reform review of public administration and the local government side. And the regulations will remain in force from April of this year up until the end of December 2019, as it was felt that this time period would be required to allow new council structures to bed in and any potential redundancies that result from that bedding in process to be identified and come into effect. In terms of the content of the regulations, I mean, the scheme itself has two elements. There's the statutory redundancy, which everybody's entitled to, and then a compensation element. And because the statutory element of the agreed scheme is already provided for in legislation, these regulations only deal with the compensation element of the negotiated scheme, so the enhancement, if you like. And that compensation element is the statutory redundancy pay multiplied by 3.46. And that multiplier of 3.46 equates to approximately 104 weeks' pay, which is the maximum permitted under the 2007 regulations that relate to redundancy. We consulted on the regulations and we received 13 responses. The majority of those came from councils and local government organisations. And as a result of that consultation, 3 minor amendments were made to the regulations. But importantly, nothing was changed to the actual agreement of the scheme. So the 3 amendments were making it absolutely clear in the legislation that Art 21 was covered by these regulations. So we've now added into the revised draft a joint committee of a council which has been constituted as a body corporate, which is the legal entity that Art 21 is. So they are definitely included in the scheme. Also, the use of statutory redundancy payment within the scheme caused some confusion amongst respondents, as the application of the statutory cap to any calculation would be affected by that, the definition of it. So this has been this will be addressed through the issue of operational guidance to make absolutely clear what we mean by statutory redundancy payment. And then finally, a number of councils requested qualification on the term a week's pay. This term is defined within the Employment Rights Northern Ireland Order 1996, and the regulations have been amended to identify the applicable legislation under which this term is defined. So to conclude, these regulations are the legal articulation of the compensation element of the agreed severance scheme, which was negotiated through the Joint Forum, and they fulfil the Department's requirements under the Local Government Act Northern Ireland 2014 and Article 19 of the Superannuation Northern Ireland Order 1972 to bring in regulations for the compensation for loss of office within a statutory framework. The production of guidance is being done through the Local Government Reform Joint Forum, and again we've got management side and trade unions involved to agree the guidance, and that will provide local government with all the information they need to implement this staff severance scheme. So at that point I'll stop talking, but Peter and I are very happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Linda. That's very clear run through of it. How many staff are we talking about, and how much is it going to, be involved in? I know there's a sum of money put aside from the executive.
No, that was for councillor severance.
Oh, right.
Which is a completely separate issue.
So staff costs will be borne by
councils. And I mean, the rationale for not asking the executive to cover it is that any severance that is agreed to really has to be on a business case. And the scheme has been geared, the other cap that actually is in the wider scheme is that it has to be shown that the payback period is a maximum of 3.25 years. because if an outside or another body was paying for this, you could find cases where people were being made redundant because they fancied a package, whereas this really has to be based on a clear business case, and councils have to show that in the long term there will be savings as a result.
Okay.
So there may be an upfront cost to councils, and we've extended the capitalisation limits that councils can actually borrow money to cover severance costs if they so choose to do. But that within 3.2.
Where do they borrow the money from, Linda? Can they borrow it from?
Either the consolidated fund, which they access through DFP, which is open to local government as well as central government, or they can take out a commercial loan, although typically commercial loans would be at a much higher rate.
Yes.
But councils on occasion would do that.
Right.
But it is important that councils can see a payback. As I said, within a maximum of a 3.25-year period.
Okay. Because, well, it's fairly generous, this top-up, if you like. Yes.
Yeah.
2 years, really pay.
Yes.
Roughly, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But as I said, the peg for that was really what happened in the health sector.
Do we know roughly how many jobs are going to be lost?
No.
We don't know.
No.
Unless you're working out.
Yeah, I mean, we're aware initially anyway that clearly, I mean, that the very senior jobs, we went through the recruitment process for 11 new chief executives, so we're aware that there are some job losses at that level.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it could take a bit of time actually.
15 chief executives going.
Well,
Financial directors
except
going,
if in some councils those chief executives are found suitable alternative employment.
Right. Yeah.
And again, through the joint forum, we've negotiated a filling of vacancies procedure where, those people whose jobs are at risk have to be considered first for any suitable job before it's opened up to a wider group of people. And that was really to minimise the numbers of redundancies that would result from reform.
Okay. And how many additional people then, when now Act 21 is included, how many posts are there?
How many
posts are there in Act 21 then? They are now being included as that may have they may have to go. We don't know.
I actually don't think that there's any immediate plans to change anything in Act 21. Okay. I suppose that they wanted to be included, and it's right that they are included because they are a local government body.
Right.
But certainly at this point in time, my understanding is that there's no immediate plans to change the management structure in Act 21. And I know that my colleagues in EPD are putting through legislation to extend the life of Act 21 or change its legal entity, because at the moment the councils that make up the body are the old councils, so they have to change the names. And I think they're simply transferring the organisation into the new set of councils.
Okay.
Okay.
Barry?
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in the situation of individuals. Obviously, I'm aware of some, but I won't mention them in any detail. But, for example, if an individual has been, his or her name has been drawn out of a hat for transfer, I believe a hat has been used to pick the names out of, where people are being relocated.
Are you referring to transfers within local government?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. From DOE planning service
No. All right.
to the new councils.
Right.
From DOE planning service to the new councils, it's my understanding that a hat was used in some cases to draw out the names, and in some cases names were drawn out for relocation till locations perhaps 40 and 50 miles away from their previous or current work setting. And in at least a couple of cases that I'm aware of, the individuals can't cope with it in terms of stress, in terms of having particular health circumstances, particular conditions. You know, the layperson observing it would say that person should not be expected to travel 40, 50 miles. It's not doable. Now, in most cases, it is doable. You know, it is doable. It's something that has to be done, unfortunately. And I would have some sympathy for those that have to manage an exercise like that. But at the same time, will it be reviewed in the short term? You know, for those for whom this is not working out.
Well, this isn't my area of responsibility because it's central HR and planning who have been, you know, dealing with what is a very considerable change for their staff, not only for relocation but a new employer. And I mean, my knowledge of it is that the starting point wasn't just drawing people out of a hat to choose where they were going. There was a staff preference scheme where staff were asked to identify, you know, all things being equal, where would they actually like to be located. Now, of course, one of the issues was that we had to wait for some time, in some cases, for councils to determine where their planning office was going to be. So, you know, I know that my colleagues in both planning and indeed central HR worked over a lengthy period of time with both local government and staff to try and resolve the issues as much as possible. And my understanding is that by and large, most people got their first choice of, or if not their second choice of location. But clearly, the planning system has to move and it has to be functional, and staff need to move with it. Now, I don't know, I have to admit, you know, what the plans are. I don't know about individual cases, and I don't know if there's plans to review this. But if you want, I can take this back to HR, or, you know,
we can write to Carl, maybe Barry, and ask
okay.
him about it.
Yeah.
Carl?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation. Really, this is one of a number of SL ones that's going to come before us, and we have a big body of work to ensure the transfer over the next 12 months and that transition runs as smoothly as possible. Just 2 points, really. ARC 21's included. Is that as what they're one of the waste management group type? Is that? Is that way? I take it. I don't know where or not the. Swamp or are they included in that, or it's just
they're not included because they don't actually employ people in their own right.
Okay.
You know, they are
made up of council.
They're council employees. So that, you know, anybody that's actually working on behalf of Swamp would be covered already.
And the other group, the Northwest group, there was three.
There's three.
There was three
they would be included anyway as part of.
Right. So no.
ARC 21 was the only one of those groups that actually employed staff in their own right as a separate body corporate. And we had to make sure that, you know, if by any chance their circumstances changed up to 2019 as a result of reform, that their staff would have the cover under this scheme.
No problem. But just back to the question about, I know the issue of the chief executives was raised by the chair. Down to 11 chief executives. You're saying some of the jobs are taking up other positions, appropriate maybe within the local council structures. Given the new dynamic of the councils, I mean, has there been new jobs created in terms of that? I could imagine there was opportunity to do that.
Yeah, what's really been happening, I suppose, since the 11 new chief executives came on board and the new shadow councils came on board, there's a lot of design work going on about the organisations that will be in effect from the 1st of April. So, and how that will look in terms of top management teams. Some of those, there'll be really a mixture of things will happen to any chief executives who were unsuccessful in the competitions. Some may choose severance and they're entitled to that, and some have decided in a couple of cases to go already. Some will be offered other posts then, and I think that will be the preference in many cases. I think to be offered other director posts and be negotiated. But the scheme, the severance scheme, it isn't an automatic thing. It's there should those choose, but it will very much be an individual choice. And I think it's a mixed bag to be right across as far as any displaced chief executives go.
No problem. We need to move it forward fairly quickly. Is that what you're saying to us?
Yeah.
Well,
1st of April, because in effect, the severance scheme, the intention of the local government joint forum was that the severance scheme would start to apply from that date. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to give the impression, and that's certainly not the message from councils, that there's whole-scale numbers of people going to start leaving. In fact, some councils have said, you know, there's a severance scheme there, but we are nowhere near ready to start talking about, because we have to focus on services.
Yeah.
And I think that has to be managed very carefully in terms of expectations, because, you know, there could be quite a significant number of staff think there's a severance scheme, I want to go, but the councils themselves have been.
But surely they'll be working through their own programme, their own strategies and their own business plan, what they want to be able to deliver and how they deliver that.
Absolutely.
That's right. And that's why it's over a 4-year period as well, because knee-jerks and a whole load of people going after the 1st of April this year is probably not a very sensible idea, but the power for that rests with councils.
Okay. Thank you.
Obviously, each new council is going to look at its function and the staff posts and the restructuring. What posts are going to be redundant?
Yes.
So, I mean, those staff who hold posts that are deemed redundant, then it's a compulsory that they must go, and they will be that will be under the severance scheme.
Compulsory redundancies are to be avoided wherever possible. It's not to be ruled out, but there's a whole series of different steps has to be gone through according to various policies and schemes developed under the joint forum. So at-risk groups, as we call them, have to be considered for other posts within the whole of local government first. And it sort of works down a sort of a scale where then compulsory redundancy is very much a final. The possibility to do that and to use the scheme to do that exists, but that's certainly not something that is envisaged by the joint forum. You know, difficult to be specific, but I wouldn't imagine that should occur in many, if any, cases. But again, that's within the council's gift to decide that. There's still a job of work to do. There's a lot of knowledge and experience within local government. People may have to move around. They may have to be flexible, but you know, posts are there, and there's a certain amount of protection under to pay for them as well.
Yeah. Although, I mean, the idea of you know, reducing the councils is obviously, you know, it's to save money. You know, the headline is 148 million pounds. So, I mean, to achieve that reduction of money, I mean, we are inevitably talking about staff cuts.
I think there would be a reasonable public expectation that when you amalgamate any organisations, that you reduce the size of your workforce. Yes. But this has to be done over a phased basis and carefully, and take in all individual circumstances into account.
I agree with you.
But it's very much about get the organisational structure lined up for the services you want to deliver, and I think councils will be focusing, and chief executives will be focusing, and have been focusing on that first and foremost, and then deal with individual cases.
And there's been a lot of work done by the new councils during their shadow period on their organisational design, and you know, the department did provide some support. We supported the design of a toolkit for organisational design, not to suggest to councils, here's a model that you should be following, but here's a series of questions that you need to ask yourself to determine, you know, what structure and what kind of council best suits your local needs.
Yeah.
And there's a local government mutual organisation called IEASY who led that work. And I know that some councils then retained IEASY to help them, you know, through the actual process of determining, you know, what their organisational structure should look like. But I think there's a realisation that, you know, whilst, you know, on the 1st of April they will start working in their new structure, that they will have to continually review that over the next few years as things settle in and bed down, and local governments start to get a real understanding of what their new powers and functions are. And I think, again, because we've had this delay of a year in DSD's functions moving, next year they might have to relook. I mean, I think the first question is bound to be, where does regeneration and community development sit? Is it in the economic development or with aligning with planning, or is it more about the social side of what councils will be doing? So, some people think, I think, the 1st of April is the end of this process, but actually, in many respects, for local government, it's just the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort out the structure first, maybe then. Much easier than that way. It's a pity, though, DSD couldn't get urban regeneration remit, off to councils, and this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a disappointment, certainly in local government, because it is now a sort of a more phased approach.
Yeah.
But I do know that DSD is looking at how they can work with councils over the coming year to really prepare for a very managed transfer come the 1st of April 2016.
Okay.
Just a
Carol,
final
you want
point.
to come back? Yeah.
Your indulgence. I mean, I do agree in some respects about the urban regeneration stuff, but there's enough to be going on with, to be honest with you. I would like to see, I know this whole process is about efficiencies, but the main thing is about delivery of service, provision of service. And I'd rather see that in place first.
Yeah.
Rather than talking, there's a voluntary exit scheme, or there's a scheme people want to go. But first and foremost, as part of the business plan, needs to be the delivery of service and how you deliver that. So that's our focus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the message I think we should be sending out as a committee. That's what we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Urban regeneration went on in 12 months. They can prepare work for that now and deliver. But I think there's a lot of things coming down to local authority now that it's very testing times and transitional period. So there's plenty to be focusing on.
Yeah. And I think actually the community planning process is going to be very important in looking at improved service delivery, not just of those services that are the responsibility of local government, but those services that are the responsibility of central government as well.
And how near are you in completing the guidance? You need it fairly soon.
Yep. The guidance is drafted. There's literally a couple of minor amendments need to go on it, and I would it be circulated to the councils and go onto the staff commission's website really imminently. So that's there. It's guidance primarily for HR departments, because trying to apply the scheme as it was originally drafted, and then the legislation on top of that. You are an HR person, and we got that feedback from the HR departments. Look, how do we interpret this? Because there was some, and that was brought out in the consultation on the regulations, there was some misinterpretation of aspects like, what do we mean by statutory redundancy? So we've tried to clarify that, and the guidance contains illustrative examples as well, taking a broad range of whether people are 55, 35 and so on, and to try and explain that out.
Maybe putting you on the spot, compare with the voluntary exit scheme that's been talking about for civil servants.
Yes.
Is this a lot more attractive? Is this a lot more generous?
It is.
I mean, the civil service scheme is in statute of 21 months, and as far as salaries concerned, the scheme, this is one of the comparators, would be 104 weeks or 2 years. So it's more generous from that perspective.
Although, I suppose we need to wait and see what the actual final terms and conditions are of the civil service voluntary exit scheme. But you're right, it's unlikely to be just as generous. But as I've said, the comparator that we've used for this is, what happened in health. And because this is part of the Review of Public Administration, which, had 3 or 4 different elements to it, it was felt that was really where we needed to seek parity of treatment. And that was a very clear expectation from the trade unions.
Sure. That was useful to have that forum to agree with the unions and stakeholders. And
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, anecdotally, within local government, you maybe wouldn't have the same type of workforce as you would have in the civil service, where there are many, many people with many years of service, and the age profile tends to be people have come into local government maybe a bit later on in their careers, or left. There's more turnover. So once you get down to the calculations, you know, there not really be that many people with 35, 40 years service, you know, at high salary levels. I mean, that's anecdotally, I don't have, but that's what the impression and feedback we get, that so in terms of overall settlement figures, it'll be based on people's lengths of service and age, and it's not quite comparable with, I understand, the civil service.
And based on the final salary?
Based on final salary.
Okay, no more questions for you, but I think we're looking at the next SL1. That's also under you. Maybe if you would say too. That's the next one, is the local government pension scheme.
Actually, that is Liz Loughran's responsibility.
Okay.
The pension scheme is, although it actually has had an effect on the severance scheme, it's our pension team, which is under Liz Loughran, who is dealing with that, because that seemed to be a day-to-day,
right.
I was going to say a normal run of business, but of course it's gone through a major reform process at the same time.
Okay then, well, we'll let you go then.
Okay,
and thank you very much yes, for coming. Yes. So, members, just want to ask you, the statutory route is subject to negative resolution and is proposed to come into operation on 1st of April. No, they don't need to. No.
Barry would need to stay.
Barry.
Can't do it.
We need a quorum for legislation. It's just right. Has he just gone out for a coffee? To bring a coffee in?
I think he's going to speak to the officials about that personal case.
Yeah, I think that's what
Needs to be told.
Okay. We moved on to. We can't do the next one either. Let's see, what's the next one? Come on, Barry, we need you.
Thank you very much. Not often I feel so needed, you know.
Members, okay. The statutory route is subject to negative resolution and is proposed to come into operation on 1st of April 2015. And of course, that's the deadline, really, it must come in. Members, are you content then for the department to proceed with making the route? Content?
Content.
Okay. Next item, another SL1, and that's item 10 on page 116. The purpose of this statutory rule is to provide the governance arrangement for the local government pension scheme. The statutory rule is subject to negative resolution and is proposed to come into operation on 1st of April 2015. Members, are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule?
Content.
Content, thank you. Next, another SL1, item 11 on page 120. That's the snares order. The purpose of the rule is to define certain requirements that users of snares must adhere to in terms of the technical design and functioning of snares and how they are used. The statutory rule is subject to affirmative resolution. Members, are you content for the department to proceed with making the rule?
Great.
Content. Thank you. Next, item 12, SL1, fluorinated greenhouse gases regulations. The purpose of this statutory instrument is to implement EU Regulation 517/2014 on fluorinated greenhouse gases. If approved by the committee and executive, this will return to the committee as a statutory instrument to note. Members, are you content to approve?
Great.
This is really a EU-wide directive, and it's agreed ready to be agreed as a UK-wide regulation. Okay. Members agree?
Agree.
Approve? Thank you. Then next item, next few items are all SRs, members. Item 13, page 156. SR on waste fees and charges. The purpose of the rule is to increase the fees and charges relating to certain waste in activities in line with inflation. The committee considered the SR1 for this rule at our meeting on the 22nd January this year, and we were content for the department to make the rule. The rule is subject to the negative resolution procedure and will come into operation on the 27th of February 2015. The examiner has not yet commented on the rule. If members are content, can I put the following question to you, please? The Committee for the Environment has considered SR 2015, number 21, the Waste Fees and Charges Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2015, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules, has no objection to the rule. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Next, item 14, page 163, another SR on motor vehicles. The purpose of the rule is to implement improved standards for child restraint systems in motor vehicles to improve safety for children. The committee considered the SR1 for this rule at our meeting on the 13th of November 2014, and we were content for the department to make the rule. The rule is subject to the negative resolution procedure and will come into operation on the 20th April 2015. The examiner has not yet commented on the rule. If members are content, I'll put the following question to you. The Committee for the Environment has considered SR 2015, number 23, the motor vehicles wearing of seatbelts by children in front seat, Amendment Regulations NI 2015, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules, has no objection to the rule. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Next item, item 15, and another SR on page 168, and that's local government standing orders. The purpose of the rule is to prescribe the new governance arrangements to be incorporated into the standing orders of the new councils. We consider the SR1 for this rule at our meeting on the 11th of December 2014, and we were content for the department to make the rule. The rule is subject to the draft affirmative resolution procedure. The examiner has not yet commented on the rule. If members are content, I'll put the following question to you. Committee for the Environment has considered the Local Government Standing Orders Regulation NI 2015, and subject to the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules, recommends that it is affirmed by the Assembly. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay. Item 16 on page 185, another SR, that's Local Government Act, commencement number. Members, it's also, let's see, we have further correspondence from the department at page 2 of your tabled pack of papers, members. The following provision of the Local Government Act 2014 came into operation on 1st February 2015. That's the Section 5.1, disqualification of prescribed holders of offices and appointments. Section 115, exclusion of non-commercial considerations. And Schedule 9, Paragraph 2, minor and consequential amendments. The committee has no scrutiny role in this commencement order. Members, are you content to note?
Content.
Okay, thank you. Then next one, members, is the briefing from the department. That's departmental briefing on the review of biodegradable carrier bags, and there's a paper, members, in your pack at page 191. Okay, members, if we can welcome Jennifer McKay. She's Regulatory Natural Resource and Policy Division, and Simon Webb, also from the same division. Very interesting paper. Yes, yes. And if you can brief the members then on your presentation, and the members, I'm sure, have questions to ask you afterwards.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair.
So, I'll just do a brief introduction, and as you say, we're happy to answer any questions members may have after that. So, as you are, Simon and I are here to discuss the advanced copy of the biodegradability report. That was produced in line with Section 10 of the Carrier Bags Act, Northern Ireland 2014. I'm going to just do a very short introduction, looking at the background to the review, the approach we actually took when carrying out the review, our main findings, and then the main conclusions. You can obviously read the detail in the report, but this is just a brief summary. So it's been quite a while since we've been here to discuss the Carrier Bags Bill. It's been nearly a year, so it's probably worth just confirming that the 5p levy on the single-use bags was followed up with an extension to all carrier bags with a retail price of less than 20p on the 19th of January this year. So that was to address, as you're aware, the issue of the large increase in the distribution of low-cost reusable bags since the introduction of the levy, and the change appears to have gone smoothly and was fairly positively covered in the local media. So we were pleased with that. But while there were various exemptions from the levy on the grounds of, as again you're aware of this, hygiene, consumer protection, confidentiality, repeat purchases of bags for life, there are no exemptions for either single-use or reusable bags of any material on biodegradability grounds. So the department was tasked with producing a report which considered whether there should be such an exemption, and if so, the criteria under which any such exemptions should apply and how they would be implemented. So that's the background to the report. In terms of the approach to the report, in terms of materials covered, we considered both paper bags and biodegradable plastic bags, as both of those bags could be considered to be what most people would term biodegradable. We primarily considered environmental factors when looking at it. We also, though, looked at consumer, economic and other factors which would have been affected or would be affected by any move to grant exemptions for biodegradable bags. In terms of scientific evidence, we drew heavily on the House of Commons Environmental Audit Committee report on plastic bags. That's a recent report. It was printed in January 2014. It looked really at the proposals for the charge to be introduced in England this coming autumn. That was the background to that. We also looked at the evidence presented to the committee in drawing up that report, as well as the report itself. And we also looked at the life cycle assessment of supermarket carrier bags that was produced by the Environment Agency for England and Wales. It was printed a bit earlier, February 2011, still fairly recent. We also considered the position in other jurisdictions, particularly England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and took into account the European dimension, given moves to introduce bag charging on a Europe-wide basis. In relation to the main findings of the report, looking first at environmental factors, in relation to paper bags, we have looked at some of this before during the passage of the bill because we discussed paper bags at length. Just to recap, the general view is, or tends to be, with the public that these are more environmentally friendly than plastic. But this is erroneous. They may have a lesser impact than plastic bags in terms of long-lasting litter and damage to the marine environment, but they have a high negative environmental impact in terms of production, transport and disposal. They need to be used at least 3 times to have less of a carbon impact than a single-use plastic bag that is used once and thrown away. And obviously, some plastic bags are used more than once. In relation to biodegradable plastic bags, one of the issues we found was that there are difficulties in defining biodegradable. There are 2 main types: biodegradable plant-based bags, and under that category we also looked at oxo-degradable bags, made from petroleum-derived polymers. Those degrade after a certain amount of exposure to mechanical stress, heat or light. And again, the conclusion was neither type produces or provides a truly environmentally friendly solution to the problem of carrier bags. Biodegradable bags are usually heavier than standard plastic bags, have higher material production impacts and a higher end-of-life impact in landfill. The oxo-degradable bags, concerns have been raised about how far and how quickly these break down, particularly in the colder, darker marine environment, and about the long-term environmental impacts of fragments left when the degradation does take place. The Environment Agency concluded that oxo-degradable bags have a larger environmental impact than standard plastic carrier bags. And looking at biodegradable bags generally, even if they do break down more quickly than standard plastic, they don't break down instantaneously, which means that they do continue to form litter and can pose a danger to wildlife. While we concentrated, as I said, on environmental factors, we also looked at consumer and economic factors. The report takes the view that ultimately the introduction of additional exemptions would risk creating confusion among shoppers and compromise the Department's communications campaign, which has focused on the objective of avoiding the unnecessary use of all carrier bags. In addition, the Department assesses extra exemptions would produce negligible economic benefits in relation to jobs, while potentially raising costs for retailers and pushing up enforcement costs, compliant officers needing to ensure sellers are complying with biodegradability standards. At the moment, it's fairly clear if an enforcement officer goes into a shop, they're either charging for a bag or they're not. But if you have the complication of what material the bag's made from, even if it looks like a standard plastic bag, that's going to potentially increase costs of enforcement. And then finally, the report looked at the fact that Europe's finalising legislation in the field and is particularly considering the impact of oxo-degradable plastic bags on the environment. So came to 5 main conclusions, well, four conclusions really and one overall comment. The first conclusion, neither paper bags nor biodegradable plastic bags are an environmentally harmless alternative to standard plastic bags. An exemption for biodegradable bags may give the erroneous impression that such bags can be a guilt-free alternative. Secondly, the availability of any sort of free bag is likely to increase the number in circulation, reversing most or all of the environmental gains from the levy to date, while at the same time potentially increasing complexity for consumers and raising costs for enforcers. On the evidence outlined in the report, the Department does not recommend either a full or a partial exemption for any sort of biodegradable bag at this stage. The overall message of the report is really ultimately all bags are worse for the environment than no bags at all, regardless of material. But I would just like to make the point, importantly, the issue will be kept under review. DEFRA in England is currently carrying out research looking at biodegradable standards in relation to its own charge, which is going to be introduced this autumn, and we are currently liaising with officials there and will watch developments very closely. The European dimension is also still developing. The issue of biodegradability will be revisited as part of the wider review into Northern Ireland charging arrangements, which the Department will carry out in 2017. So we're happy to, hopefully that's given a bit of a recap on our findings, and we're happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for this very clear report. You certainly make it very, very clear. No exemptions. That's it. And I think there's a lot of misconception that paper bags, are better and biodegradable bags are better, because they melt and all the rest. But certainly the research has definitely very evidence-based and saying, no, it's wrong, it's wrong.
I think that would be our view, Chair, that if we did recommend it at this stage, we really would be going against the evidence that is out, the scientific evidence that is there at the moment.
Yeah.
But DEFRA is carrying out these reviews, and it's a very interesting area, and we will watch it with interest.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye. You will keep an eye on their development, on the development, on that kind of more environmentally friendly development of biodegradable bag. I mean, that should be something really, that we can certainly look into it further, maybe research and develop into. I don't really have any questions, just to thank you for a very good summary of the conclusion. Han?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. It's, as the Chair said, very interesting, and I know I was one of the people who raised the biodegradable bags as an option of an exemption to the levy on a number of occasions in the past. It's very interesting to hear what research has come up with, and I welcome the fact that that will be reviewed again in the future to keep in mind any changes that will come in. I'm just thinking in lines of the plastic bags that are exempted at the moment, for food retail, hot food, and that kind of thing. If you go to Chippy, you get a plastic bag. Has there been any look into using biodegradable there instead of the traditional ordinary plastic bag, or is that evidence coming back saying that actually the biodegradable's not any better than the bag at all, so there's no point actually going down that road?
Exactly, and I think we were talking about this morning, whether that was a possible, but I think you have sort of answered on the basis that in a lot of cases those standard plastic bags are actually less harmful to the environment than what a lot of people would perceive as biodegradable.
Right.
When we actually started drafting the report, we thought that one of the recommendations that would ultimately be in there would be that where bags are used, while they might not be exempt from the levy, that we would maybe mandate retailers or shops to use biodegradable bags, thinking that that would get us an even better overall environmental outcome. But in actual fact, the studies would suggest that that might actually be a retrograde step in terms of the overall impact in terms of the global warming potential and the air and water pollution.
Yeah, that's very interesting because we're, certainly in my council area, we're using biodegradable bags in our food waste.
Food waste, yeah.
So is that actually the wrong thing?
No, I think given the circumstances there, because it's designed for that particular purpose, so that it can go into the composting facilities, into a commercial composter, in order to produce a soil product or something of that nature. Whereas the purpose of the bag here, its function is different, and as such, you need a bag that's durable. And obviously, if we were to introduce the single-use plastic bag into the food waste collection, that would cause problems for the composters then.
Yeah, I know, because those biodegradable bags that are used at waste are actually, sometimes when you go to they actually break apart.
Yes, I've had that happen quite a few times.
Yeah, me too, and the different just seem to be
they wouldn't tend to be as durable.
You couldn't imagine actually being able to come out of a supermarket with a
few
tins in it. Imagine just falling through the bottom.
I think you do have to be quite careful as well in terms of how they're disposed of. In terms of what can go to landfill, what has to go into a mechanical composting. And there's an interesting study done by Waitrose, which was referenced in the report, that consumers are confused, and what you don't want is people thinking they're biodegradable, putting them into the wrong waste stream.
Yes.
That can cause issues too, while there is general confusion about what biodegradable actually is.
And we don't want to confuse them anymore, and the levy has been very
effective.
There would be a risk of contamination of the recyclate stream in terms of plastic bags, which those involved in the recycling industry a lot would be concerned that could actually really damage the market for plastic recyclates if the wrong type of bag was ending up in the wrong place.
But then when you look at the thickness of the biodegradable bags, they are much thicker than your single-use bag.
Yes.
Therefore, you use much more plastic.
That's right. They will actually be more bulkier, but actually, for the purpose of carrying shopping, as you say, less suitable to the task.
Yeah. Okay, Carol?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation. And as I was listening to the presentation, I was saying to Colin here, the confusion would reign if we go down that route. I think we're doing fairly well on it, to be honest with you. And I think I'd like to thank you for the report. I think we're going down the right route, and I think we should continue that way. I think it has been very, very successful, to be honest, in terms of the levy itself. So I would support the report. And clearly, as we're going to review it again anyway, 2016 or 17, whatever, So look forward to that. Just a comment, really. I would hope that the levy's been used for more environmental practices, measures. That's because that's what the whole thing was about from the very, very start.
Absolutely, the levy is being used to fund a lot of local environmental projects. I certainly know from the 2013-14 year, for the first year of operation, that it was used through the Challenge Fund. There were over 250 local projects that actually benefited from that funding.
Was it by legislation, the money raised through
the
levy
money is to go
must
back
be
to those
used
sorts
for
of
environmental issues?
But unlike Pam, we don't, me and Colin don't have any problems with the shopping bags just yet, but we certainly,
Never
maybe
will,
when we
I'm
come
sure.
back, we'll let you know, maybe the straps
Absolutely.
come off the bags or anything like that, we'll come back and let you know how we're getting on. All right.
Although
an easy
I'm
life, you know.
surprised,
Thank you very
though. I mean, we are still
That'll be able to.
predicting. We are still predicting for the next financial year that we are going still to have about £4.2 million of levy.
Yep.
I thought people, have dropped away using plastic bags, and we wouldn't be getting that predicted £4 million, but we seem to be.
The thing with the consumer behaviour, when we've looked at the experiences in other countries, the introduction of the charge initially will cause a massive drop in the consumption, and as we know, that is indeed what happened. We're down over
80–90% drop.
absolutely. It's more than 210 million bags a year saving compared to where we were previously. But the international experience would also suggest that after a while, the consumption does start to creep back up. People get a bit lazy, they get a bit used to the charge.
Yeah.
The initial shock at, well, I'm not paying 5p for a bag, soon gives way to, oh,
Yeah.
well, it's only 5p, so I'm willing to, the odd time, it's just easier. So there will be issues around that, and we would expect that shoppers will gradually go back in very small numbers, only a small increase over time, and that's something that the review in 2017 will need to look at and monitor, because of course in real terms the value of the levy goes down each year due to inflation. So the relative cost of a bag is actually falling year on year, so I think the 2017 review will need to look at that and look at the actual data from the first 3 years of operation to see how consumers are behaving.
Yeah.
Bit of deflation.
Yeah, no, just on that, because that's an interesting point, Chair, if it's come back, and I know maybe some people will go back to that, but then with an opportunity to publicity programme or some kind of
Absolutely.
or exercise to
Yes.
just reignite the message, but in terms
Very
of,
much so. It would be
Yeah.
possible to reinforce the message
Yeah.
through advertising, and that's what we sought to do in January with the Phase 2 campaign. So when we were extending the levy, we took that as an opportunity to remind people to reuse the bags to try and get that message back into the shoppers' minds.
Have you statistics yet on people still buying the cheaper reusable bag?
We have only the statistics from the the 19th of January period, and those statistics were provided on a voluntary basis by a number of retailers
Right.
on a confidential basis. It may be possible to obtain further data from those retailers to see if there's been an impact from the Phase 2 introduction. But either way, the retailers will have to declare those bags, obviously, now going forward in their overall return. It won't identify those as low-cost reusable bags. It will just form a part of their overall return with their single-use bags.
Yeah. I notice now a lot of people, when they go to, say, like stores, like in Stormont, when there are organisations coming with free cloth bags, people are now taking them. Previously, people don't want it, like a badge or something, people don't want it, or a pen. But now I noticed the other day
Absolutely.
people are taking those bags. And yes.
Very much so.
Good idea, yeah. No more questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. We maybe hear from you 2017 then.
Cheers.
Okay. Okay, members then, really this is no fault with you. Members content with the report and the presentation?
Yes.
So, okay. Then next item, it's item 18, page 229. We have Susie Cave coming from Research and Information Service to talk to us about the paper and this on the new European work programs. Okay, Susie's paper on EU initiatives is on page 230, and there's the EU matters on page 311, and also the I'll talk to you later on another paper. But Susie, that's an excellent paper, really, really good. You worked very hard on tabling it. Yeah, interesting paper.
There's quite a lot of detail in it,
Yeah.
and I apologise for that.
Right.
And really, there's no easy way of going about it. So
No.
The most of the paper is in the form of a table. So
If you can talk members just through. Members, it's 230 is the easier one to look at first. Is that right? Lucy?
okay, yeah.
230.
So this basically just looks back at the 2013, the 2014 work programme, and then also incorporates the new 2015 Commission work programme. So it identifies initiatives from each of the years that the committee may want to consider a bit further. If I could just turn to the diagram on page 2, just by way of context, it sort of illustrates the EU decision-making structure, which involves 3 main institutions. So you have the European Commission, which represents the interests of the EU as a whole, and then the Council of the European Union. And this represents individual member countries, and then the European Parliament, and this represents EU citizens. Now, the work programme itself is drawn up by the Commission, and this provides a comprehensive look at the Commission's priorities for the next 12 months. Now, these are the priorities that are set out by the President. So, in principle, the work programme, or the Commission, proposes new laws, but it's the Council of Ministers, together with the Parliament, that then decides on them becoming law. So as I said, I've pulled together most of the main initiatives into a table form, which just begins on the 4th page of the paper. I'll try not to go in and out of all the detail at this stage, but it just begins with an update of those initiatives that were proposed in the work programmes from 2013 and 2014 that have since been adopted by the Commission. So basically, this means the Commission will begin to prepare them for consideration by the Parliament and Council at a later stage. And in terms of timescales, it's not possible at this stage to say just how long they may take once they are adopted before they would become law, or before they maybe get to the stage you'd be familiar with where an EM is sent out to each of the national parliaments for comment. So just looking into the initiatives themselves, there's 2 on climate change proposals. These can be seen at the start of the table. One I will highlight is in relation to a climate change framework for the period beyond 2020 and up to 2030. Currently, the programme for government targets are for up to 2025, and the Department's greenhouse gas action plan is in line with this time frame. So therefore, it may be of interest just to find out from the Department what plans they might have for taking targets beyond 2025 to comply with this 2030 framework. Now, having conducted a review of the current air pollution policies and legislation, the Commission is also proposing the introduction of new air quality objectives for up to 2030. So this will include stricter national emission ceilings for pollutants. Now, bringing this back to the impact for Northern Ireland, Belfast itself has had ongoing issues with nitrogen dioxide levels. Latest figures from 2013 show a number of locations within the Belfast urban area which did not comply with EU limits for nitrogen dioxide. So member states with zones not meeting these limits can actually apply to the Commission for a time extension, and this would give them time up to 2015. Now, applications for extensions have to be accompanied by action plans showing how these limits would be achieved. Belfast has actually applied for an extension, however its action plan was rejected back in 2012 by the Commission. So it may be of interest to ask the Department whether this is still a continued issue, and with new and stricter emissions ceilings being proposed by the Commission, how will the Department ensure compliance at sites with a history of exceedance over the years? The Commission has also adopted the establishment of 2 frameworks. One on fracking, and this is just to establish a common approach across the EU. Another to promote the circular economy. Now, this will include an increased recycling target for municipal waste to 70% in 2030. This may need to be discussed in relation to the Department's proposed 60% recycling target for 2020, which has been suggested in the new waste management strategy. Now, just looking at something with a more immediate time frame, in July 2014, the Commission adopted a directive facilitating the cross-border exchange of information on road safety-related traffic offences. And this can be seen from page 9 of the table. This has been an ongoing issue. The introduction of such a directive began back in 2008. However, it was rejected due to problems with its legal base. This new directive is, in fact, it's the remedied version. So, having received approval by the EU Parliament just yesterday, transposition by the UK and Ireland is hoped for 2017. Now, as you all know, Minister Atwood had intended legislation for the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. However, it was halted due to legal complexities. So again, it might be of interest to find out from the Department whether the resolving legal basis at the EU level means legislation can be expected in due course. Now, just turning to the 2015...
You jump one point, Susie. What about that aid? I've lost that now, it's in my head. The state aid for environmental protection?
Yes, if you want to discuss that, yeah, I can. I wasn't going to go through everyone at this stage, but if you want to, that's no problem.
Just given the current constraint on the department on environmental protection, like Moboy and all that's having money now to carry through. So if you want to talk to members about that one. That's a review of the community guidelines I found it on state aid for environmental protection.
Yes, basically this is in relation to for environmental protection. So a number of the EU funding actually stipulate that in order to achieve the funding they have to fit in line with the state aid guidelines and requirements. So with an update in the guidelines, it's just to find out from the department how do they disseminate these new guidelines through to new applicants, so whether it's organisations or arm's length bodies, to ensure that they are also hitting this criteria to achieve the funding.
Is there anything from there that, for example, that we can work with the Republic of Ireland to get money from the EU, say like cleaning up waste, dumped in Northern Ireland or vice versa?
On cross-border basis. The only thing that I am aware of is in relation to the Horizon 2020, but that's in relation to conducting research to maybe facilitate that sort of action, but to actually implement it. Yeah. That would be something maybe the department could ask. You can ask and give you a bit more detail. I wouldn't have it off the top of my head right now, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'll just go to the new initiatives then under the 2015 programme. These sort of coincide with the work of the OFM-DFM committee, and I think there's a report along with my paper in your packs. So this is just the work that the OFM-DFM committee conduct each year on the new work programme, and we tend to pull it together and identify some of the main issues for each of the committees.
Members, that's at page 249.
So the difference with these initiatives is that they are really only proposals at this stage, so they haven't actually been adopted by the Commission as yet. I just want to stress the very early stage that these proposals are at. However, it's at this early stage that other EU institutions and national parliaments have the opportunity to comment on the content. So from the committee's perspective, it may be of interest to ask the department whether it has identified any issues with the programme and whether they've communicated them or not. So I'll just take you through a couple of the initiatives. One is proposed...
Sorry, members, 243. Maybe easier to look at that table form. Is that right? 243? Yes.
Page 11, yes.
Yeah. Page 11. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, in your pack, members, 243.
Sorry if I'm going through this too quickly. So on page 11, there's the revision of the EU emissions trading system. So this is under a new energy framework for post-2020. The Commission launched a public consultation in December in 2014. So it also focuses on a new emission reduction target of at least 40% in 2030 compared to the 1990 levels. So this consultation runs until the 15th of March. And it might be of interest to find out from the department whether it has or intends to feed into the consultation, just to get an idea of their sort of communication process as well at this sort of stage. Another proposal is in relation to genetically modified organisms, GMOs. This will be a possible review of the decision-making process. Now, responsibility for GMOs falls under the remit of both DOE and DARD, where DOE's remit is in relation to the deliberate release of GMOs into the environment. DARD is more in relation to EU enforcement in relation to animal feeds and seed certification. So the responsibility and Northern Ireland's position surrounding GMO cultivation, however, is less clear, with both leading departments appearing to hold opposite views in the past. It may be of interest to ask the department to clarify its position and responsibility in relation to the cultivation of GMOs. Now, the aim of the proposal is to look at how the rules could be changed to better ensure, and I quote, the majority view of member states is taken into account. But it needs to be considered how this will affect Northern Ireland should its view differ from the rest of the UK and the majority of member states. So just the final part of the section, and it's under refit actions. That will be on page 14, so it's just over the page. Refit is the Commission's regulatory fitness and performance programme. Now, under this programme, the Commission is to conduct an evaluation of existing legislation covering the areas listed in the first column. Now, these areas fall under the remit of DOE, and most have existing legislation implemented at the Northern Ireland level. So this includes an ongoing fitness check as well of the Birds and Habitats Directive, which is ongoing and is due to end in 2016. Now, the outcomes of these evaluations are not yet known. However, should they bring any changes to the EU legislation, it may in turn have impacts on any associated national legislation. So just on this basis, the committee may wish to find out from the department whether, again, they have had any input into these evaluations, just to see their level of engagement. So just, for now, I think I'll leave it there for now, and I appreciate that I haven't gone through all of the detail in the paper. And if there's any areas that I haven't identified in the paper or the briefing, can be fully explored at further request.
It's very well set out, thank you, Susan. You know, at a glance, it's so easy to look at. And EU initiatives are not the best to understand generally. Members, and I was just thinking, shall we just, Susie, can we just send this to the department rather than for us to rewrite it?
Yeah.
And ask them, members, do you agree with the suggested questions that Susie has put in? And ask them for their responses. How you want to come in?
Thanks, Sharon. Susie, thank you very much. A lot of information in there.
Yes.
It's a big piece of work to put all that together, and thank you for that. And you know, the recurring two themes keep coming up, and even the consideration there's a lot of questions for the department. Obviously, they have to respond to it. But the two key issues for me is one, in relation to how we or the departments here are interacting in Europe, and how we're playing our part. Because whilst these are grand, all these things you've listed in terms of directives and initiatives, we have to be realistic in how we can achieve them. So if the European Parliament brings a directive there that we have to adhere to, that's one question, what part we are playing, and the derogation then that comes down to each member state, how you deal with it. And that's certainly something you need to highlight, and as part of that, I think you've identified that in that column. The other one for us then is it's back to the old money issue and the budget issue. On what part we're playing in terms of if we're asking people to adapt to something, how it would happen into money to adapt to change, what impact that is, you know. But you can't very well say there's something new. If it's not a monetary value, then it's a period time. You allow people to adapt to a programme over a 10-year,
Yeah.
15, 20-year. And that's the kind of things, that's the two things that stand out to me. But I certainly do appreciate the report, and thank you for that. But there's questions to be asked of the department.
Yeah.
And it's that early stage that if they're aware of these possible changes that are coming through, to allow then for more time to adapt, so it's less of an immediate
rush at the end.
yeah.
Yeah, when you have to meet the deadline or facing infraction fines.
And just on that, just final point, obviously we're mindful now of transfer of certain powers to local authority because they'll, especially the waste issue. Is there anything else, or was there any gaps there in terms of responsibility? Is there anything coming out of the directives or out of Europe that we need to be very careful how we transfer that or transpose that power over to the local authority for them to deal with? Or is there anything we need to be asking the department in that? Like?
Really, yes. The main thing in relation to the waste, just to try and keep it specific, and I suppose use an example, this new circular economy and the new targets that are going to be produced under this, it's a new concept. Yeah. So while the councils themselves will have to adhere to the new targets, they'll have to adhere to new targets of a whole new concept as well. So, which will add extra pressure too.
Yeah. Well, the trip to Metapolon is very much on the circular economy.
Yeah.
What you produce, it's not seen as waste. What you produce then should then continue to be used.
Back into the production
back into production, extract out and then reuse again and again. So and that's certainly a new concept and a really good concept.
And it also requires new technology as well, and new resources again.
Yes, when people are manufacturing things, they need to know then how to do it so that the materials later on can be extracted out easily, not wasted. Yeah.
Just to the Chair, but that's a key point.
Yeah.
Whilst we are on the DOE side of it and on policy side, we need to be working with DATI and DARD. If we run out them renewable projects or whatever technologies, that's them other departments need to be sharing that.
Sure. Now that then brings me to another part of under this item. There is a letter from OFM-DFM committee asking us information regarding the committee's European priorities for 2015, and that's on page 249. And they also wanted us to review our priorities for last year. Members, have you any particular burning priorities you want us to include in? Or maybe we can work with Susie and bring up a draft and bring it back to members.
Yeah, you bring up the draft.
Chair, I wouldn't mind if it's available, maybe it's not. Are there any villages or small towns that have actually benefited from European money to do with community regeneration, where they put environment at the heart of their project? Just to translate it in the most practical way possible. And I'm not talking about the Rural Development Programme, DARD, which does a bit of this, but is there any DOE department involvement in drawing down European money, which you go to your local community association with, where you put the environment at the heart of a proposal and you get financial support? Has it ever happened in the history of time?
I'm not sure. Well,
anywhere?
Well, we could ask the department.
No, we could ask the department. Air quality, water quality, We can ask the department on that as well. Yeah. And another thing that came to my mind as well when we are asking the committee, maybe we should ask the department for an update on the recommendations we made in used tyre. Report at inquiry. Given the recent publicity about mostly hundreds and hundreds of tyres, that are going to be burned for 12th of July. So we made a whole list of recommendations, short-term, medium-term, long-term recommendations for DOE to carry through, like voluntary registration scheme or the long-term producer responsibility scheme. Or maybe you should ask for an update on those recommendations and how they work. Maybe with local councils, what work have they done with local councils addressing the issue?
Would agree with that.
Where are those hundreds of tyres coming from? There needs to be an audit trail, an audit trail of you know how they end up as roadside.
Yeah, Chair, can I just come in on that?
Yes.
Say that it was an inquiry you did into the tires.
We did.
Before my time.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to see what response the department come back. I know I've certainly been asking questions about the tires at New Mossley and see what action the department are taking to deal with the issue, because it's illegal dumping. And we want to see some form of enforcement.
Yes.
So,
yes.
But it would be interesting to see what comes back.
Well, it definitely is environmentally damaging, but also to human health as well.
Absolutely.
Children, particularly, you know, the lungs and people with problem with already breathing problems and make it worse for them.
Absolutely, that'll be my main concern.
Yeah.
Could I just say, yes, I agree with my colleague. You need community buy-in.
Yeah.
If you don't have community buy-in, you can pass all the laws you want, all the rest. Laws will be ignored. You need community buy-in.
Right.
And you have to, I think we have to stress this as a health issue, as much as an environmental issue.
Yes.
It is environmental, but it also affects
It is, oh yeah, absolutely.
and I think that's the way we collectively have to sell this, you know. Well, people are entitled to their bonfires, and we accept that, but this material is
giving
poisonous.
out toxic fume,
Absolutely.
damaging people's health.
I've spoken to plenty of my constituents who this affects. They don't want it.
Oh, they don't.
They don't want it, no,
They don't
local
want it. They
people.
want tires at the bonfire, yes.
That's right.
But there's
You know,
The heat
want
of
to
it
celebrate.
too, coming so
We want to
close to
celebrate
the
our
host.
culture, but it's, you know, it's health and safety is a huge issue here.
It
The
is.
problem is people are afraid to really express that view. As
They live in the
quickly
area, yeah.
as one would like, you know.
No, I know. Well, but should the committee send out a press release about, you know, reiterating our report, if you like, members? Would that make any difference?
Okay.
Yep.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thanks.
Sandra?
Yep.
Came into.
Chair, I know from my
Yeah.
point of view, I don't know
Yeah.
whether Sandra, were you on the committee when
No.
when that cried? So I don't know even what the recommendations were of that report, so I'm not aware of that. So I wouldn't want to be saying, let's do that when I haven't actually seen the detail of it. But
That's what I was going to say. Could we wait and see what the response back is, and then
From the department, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. The report should still be on our website under the committees. So there's lots of recommendations in there, and you know also urging the department to work with local councils.
On a regular basis.
So yeah.
I mean, Chair,
Okay.
this is not just an issue for bonfires. I mean, I've had other constituents in other parts of South Antrim, farmers, you know, who've had massive piles of tires dumped overnight on their land, and they're left to deal with the issue. You know, so this is a huge issue of enforcement for DOE, and that's I would be looking to them to tell us what they're doing to combat this. I mean,
Yes.
the laws in place.
Yes.
Why is it not
Yes.
being?
Well, they said I think they have tightened the audit trail. You know, this waste tire collectors. They need to be registered. They need to be updated with the names and contact details on the website and
Yeah,
things.
we're all paying the extra money to have the
Oh yes,
tires disposed
£1,
of properly.
£1.50 per tire
So,
you pay
you know,
when you change your wheel.
questions do
Yeah,
need to be answered.
when you change your tire. Yeah. Okay, well, members, you're content, then we also write to the department about that. And Susie, can we work with you then? Because we have actually to produce, to complete the form sent by OFMDFM to us to ask us for our priorities. if we work with you, Sheila, and me and you, and then we send around a draft. Just next week we're not going to be here, and the following week we're meeting on the 26th. So the 27th is the deadline, or if MDFM want us to send back a form. So if maybe in the next 2 weeks we look through what you have given us.
Yeah, because some of those have been identified based on your priorities from last year's as well. So we went through those to try and tie it in.
Yes.
So yeah, that should.
Just difficult now. I think we don't have the time. If the three of us work out something, email round, the members can then comment on it.
Yeah.
That do?
Great.
Okay, members. Then next item, correspondence. Let's see. Refer members to correspondence listed on page 316. Members, one item there, and item 19.5. The Woodland Trust has requested a meeting with the committee regarding their campaign to identify and protect the most significant trees in the landscape. Members, would you wish to meet with the trust? Ask them to come and give us a presentation. Next one, members, and then any comments on any other items? Are you content to note the suggested actions on the cover note?
Great.
Content? Okay. Forward work programme on page 334, members. Content with that?
Great.
AOB? Any AOB? Members?
Just one item.
Okay.
In light of what has taken place with the taxis legislation now, could you find out the department what indication they're given to the taxi industry and how they're operating at the minute? I mean, because we
said we should have a meeting.
No, it's not even that there. I mean, 12 months ago or less, the taxi industry was notified there was a single tier being introduced. That's now not happening. So there's a few firms been on asking exactly what's taking. So whether it's short note or whatever it is, people need to know what's going on. That's all. I'd like to find out in the department what exactly is going on.
Next step
confusion.
from that. Yeah,
No,
okay, we do that. Then we ask.
There's nothing by your good self.
Yeah, quite right.
There's no confusion in it. Just we note out the taxi industry. I mean, say the single tier is now not operating. That's no confusion in that.
That's right. Okay, members. Next week the committee will be going to Edinburgh for the Scottish Environment Week, and then the following week we are meeting back here in Senate Chamber, and that's Thursday, the 26th of February. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Well done.
Well done. 10 to 12. Huh?
Again, early March.